If justice is supposed to protect the powerless, then why does it look like power is what's being protected in this courtroom? Because after 2 full weeks of testimony, the evidence stacking up against Sean Diddy Combs paints a picture far darker than just celebrity misbehavior.
In this video, I'll walk you through everything that's happened in the Diddy federal trial so far. From Homeland Security's shocking drug raid on his Miami mansion, to Kid Cudi's emotional testimony about a firebombed Porsche, and the insider accounts that expose a disturbing pattern of violence and control.
We're going to break down the key witnesses, the most damaging evidence, and the emerging legal strategy behind this federal sex trafficking and racketeering case. You might be asking yourself, is this just more media hype? Why are so many people testifying now, after years of silence? How much of this will actually hold up in court? And what does this say about how the system treats celebrities compared to everyday people?
Stick around, because later in this video, I'll show you how this case eerily mirrors what we saw in the R. Kelly and Russell Simmons cases, and how the same patterns are showing up again, but this time with even more disturbing details. Week 1 and 2 recap. The stakes couldn't be higher. If convicted, Sean Combs could spend the rest of his life in prison. Federal prosecutors allege that Combs ran a criminal operation built on coercion, sex trafficking, and fear, using drugs, violence, intimidation, and his inner circle to lure and trap women, particularly Cassie Ventura and another alleged victim, into participating in what they called freak-offs. The defense isn't denying everything. In fact, they admitted up front. Yes, Combs was violent with romantic partners. Yes, he lived what they called a different kind of sex life. But, they argue, he didn't commit the federal crimes he's accused of. They're framing him as a very flawed individual, not a criminal mastermind.
The prosecution's strategy: use every witness to reinforce Cassie Ventura's initial claims, brick by brick, to build a wall of evidence that can't be ignored. Federal agent Gerard Gannon took the stand and dropped bombshell after bombshell. In a March raid on Combs' Miami property, investigators found pills testing positive for MDMA, ketamine, alprazolam, and methamphetamine, a Gucci bag with white powder, a $100 bill, a straw, and a rock-like crystal, testing positive for cocaine and ketamine, a puffy box, gold engraved containing capsules of psychedelic mushrooms. That wasn't all. Agents also recovered 25 bottles of baby oil and 31 bottles of Astroglide lubricant, a loaded .45 handgun, dismantled AR-15 parts with scratched serial numbers, 2 loaded magazines hidden in a guard shack. This wasn't just messy celebrity living. Prosecutors argue these items suggest a methodical system of control, especially when paired with what came next.
If you think that's a level of power most people couldn't dream of hiding, hit that like button so more people see it. Dr. Dawn Hughes, a forensic psychologist who testified in the R. Kelly and Nexum trials, took the stand to explain something the prosecution believes is key. Why did Cassie stay? Why didn't victims speak out sooner? Her testimony wasn't about this case directly, but about patterns of abuse. Victims often stay due to financial dependence, shame, and trauma. Perpetrators use power, not just violence, to track victims. And when sexual abuse is involved, humiliation and fear can silence even the most public figures. On cross, it turned out she was being paid $6,000 a day and has never testified for a man accused of sexual assault. Still, her breakdown of abuse dynamics gave jurors a lens to understand Cassie's earlier testimony, and the behavior of witnesses who say they saw everything but stayed quiet.
Then came George Kaplan, Diddy's former executive assistant. He didn't just testify, he had to be granted immunity to do so. Kaplan worked for Diddy from 2013 to 2015, often 80 to 100 hours a week. He testified that Diddy threatened his job almost monthly. He had to set up hotel rooms with candles, liquor, baby oil, and Astroglide, which he bought using his corporate card. He often had to clean up after hotel encounters, removing Gatorade bottles, drugs, and a mysterious brown crystallized powder. He said his job wasn't just to serve, it was to protect Diddy's image. And yes, on 2 occasions, he purchased drugs at Diddy's request. When asked why he left, Kaplan was blunt. He wasn't comfortable with the physical behavior he'd seen, including witnessing Diddy beat Cassie on a jet and finding her with visible bruises crying on a hotel bed.
But here's the twist. Despite all this, Kaplan says he still contacts Diddy every birthday, even nodding and smiling at him during his testimony. Cudi, known as Kid Cudi, delivered one of the most dramatic testimonies so far. He briefly dated Cassie in 2011, believing she and Combs had broken up. Cassie told him Combs had been physically abusive. Soon after, Combs found out. Cassie called Cudi terrified. They hid in a hotel while Combs allegedly broke into Cudi's house. Cudi returned home to find security cameras moved, gifts opened, and his dog locked in the bathroom. Weeks later, his Porsche was set on fire. In court, he described it as if someone had cut the top open and thrown a Molotov cocktail in. He believed Combs was behind it, and when they met at Soho House, he described Diddy standing by a window, like a Marvel supervillain.
Combs denied everything, but in 2015, he apologized saying, "Man, I just want to apologize for everything." Cudi said it gave him peace, but he still believes Combs was lying about the Porsche. 2 more witnesses tied Cassie's testimony together. Myla Morales, a celebrity makeup artist, said she saw Cassie with a swollen eye, busted lip, and knots on her head after an altercation with Combs. Frederick Zamore, hotel GM, testified that Diddy used aliases like Jackie Starr and Frank White, always spilled candle wax, and used so much oil that his rooms needed deep cleaning and a $1,000 damage deposit. This wasn't just chaos, it was routine. If you thought these past 2 weeks were explosive, you need to see my video comparing Diddy's case to R. Kelly, Russell Simmons, and Trey Songz.
That video shows you just how deep these patterns go and how often the system looks the other way until it's far too late. Watch it now. It connects dots this trial hasn't even addressed yet. Make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming might not just change this case. It could change how we think about justice in America.